Welcome to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your co-host, Regina Partain Bergman. And as anybody who's watched the show knows, my co-host, Pearl Cox, is unable to be with us right now. So I have the delightful pleasure of having guest co-hosts on while Pearl's away. And as I've mentioned so many times before, this is so much fun that even when Pearl comes back, we're going to do this. This is just too much fun. I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my guest co-host today, I want to introduce you to my guest co-host today, who is JB Herrera. And JB is, I did it well.
Yep.
JB is the chief entrepreneur and I wiped out what I had written here. Tell us the
It's
name of
okay.
that, JB.
Perceptive
Insights.
insights.
Perceptive. My perceptive went away, and I just have insights, and I knew that wasn't right.
It's
So
all
he
good.
works. He works with entrepreneurs to build profitable, sustainable, values-based
Based.
businesses. And we have had some wonderful conversation, and I look forward to many more. JB, welcome.
Thank you, Regina. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's great to have you here today as our guest co-host. And folks, I'll just let you know we may be being joined by some other folks. They may not be able to make it, they may be. So we'll bring them on in if they can make it and add them to the conversation. So JB, would you give us a little bit bigger intro for yourself? Tell us a little
Sure.
bit about what's brought you to this place. 'Cause you've done some amazing things in your life. What's
It's
brought you here, who you serve, and why?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. This has been an interesting journey. I have been a business mentor and coach for about 35 years. I started off back in the early days of high technology, working at Apple Computer, when it was Apple Computer, not Apple Inc., and worked with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in rolling out the Macintosh. I ran a couple of my own companies in between, setting up several different investments with different companies, and sold a couple of businesses, went back to Apple later on. So it's been a really interesting journey. The couple of things that really got me to where I'm at today, and one was one of my own businesses called Intermedia Network, where we were developing interactive broadcasting, which is what we're seeing today on the internet. It's really interesting. We were just like 30 years ahead of time. So as a result, when you're designing and developing a business, if you're too early, it blows up. And that's exactly what happened to us. And
Mm,
so I call that my one of my great learning lessons of life. So yes, I lost lots of money. Yes, I lost lots of prestige and a lot of my relationships and things as a result of that. But coming through that, I designed and developed a whole series of processes for small businesses so that they could avoid the mistake that I had made. And
yes.
I will do almost anything to prevent people from making the same mistakes that I made. So my focus right now, going back looking at that example, was I got off track. My core values were always about helping other people first. But at that time, when we rolled out the business, I had a bunch of venture capital people telling me, whispering in my ear, "Hey, if you did this, you're going to be a unicorn. You're going to do this much money." And I went, ding, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Like some people do, and lost my way. And that's what caused me to
Right.
lose everything. So everything that I do now is about core values and how you utilize those as decision-making tools in the future. So
Yes.
profitability, relationships with your stakeholders, both internal and external, setting up collaborations, which we're going to talk about really, are really designed around, in my opinion, what your core values are, what your stories are about those core values, and how they connect with your brand promise, and then how you execute. So that's what
Excellent.
I'm all about.
I love it. I love it. First of all, I just have to say, how many people out there are going, wow, he worked with Steve and Steve?
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. I was the last hired group that went through the onboarding class that Steve and Steve gave.
Right.
They handed us out a little Apple values card, and I
Oh,
still have it.
nice.
It's
Nice.
it's it's awesome. Yeah. First value that I learned: empathy for the customer.
Yes.
Understand them first, and that's
Yes.
been kind of a core principle for me. So thank you
Understand
for them.
and demonstrate, right?
Yep.
Demonstrate that empathy as well. Yes.
Yep.
I love that your foundation is based on core values because that
Hmm.
is so important to me as well. In fact, you and I, are tightly woven all the way through here.
Yeah, right. We have done that for sure.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that fact. And I also liked that you brought out the part about it blowing up because you were in the market too soon.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure a challenge for a lot of folks is when is the right time to enter the market.
Hmm.
And
It,
so
it,
while we're talking about collaborations today, I really would like to touch on that just a little bit because I think it's such an important
sure.
principle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, this is one of those in the military, they call it an after action report, right? So it took me many years of emotional recovery to
Well, I'm
get through
sure.
that. But in the process of healing and getting through that, I designed a bunch of different tools. One, one was my swag tool. Swag stands for scientific wild guess, right?
Yeah,
Um, and being able to understand, it's different than a SWOT analysis, which is situations,
right,
what the threats might be.
right.
This really has to do with understanding what your internal process is, your sales process, what your and if you know it. So if you don't know it and you can't do it, then you don't even have a right to have a conversation about moving
Right.
into the
Not yet.
marketplace. But once you have that in place, then the question ends up being who's the market, how big that market is, what percentage of the market do you think you can obtain, and how? And now you have an idea that, okay, this might be okay. I can actually get into the marketplace. Because if you don't do that, here's what I've noticed. Some people will say they've got a product and it's the best product ever. Everybody in the world needs to have this. And
Right,
well, what is it? It's a brand new coffee mug. It's
right,
the best coffee
right.
mug ever. Okay. So what's unique about it? How fast can you make it? What are the costs? All of that kind of stuff. What's the size of the market? Well, it's size of coffee mugs, portable coffee mugs is pretty big. However, your competition is pretty fierce. So the
Yes.
question that I would have for myself going through this swag process is, how do I think I can distinguish myself from everybody else very quickly? And
Hmm.
because it might not be the right time for me to get into the market if my expectation is I'm going to make $100 million. Yeah, probably not. Just going through that analysis,
Right.
the discipline of processing the information in that particular order has been life-saving for me and for many of my clients moving forward.
Yes.
Understanding the timing of the market and when you can obtain things is critical. Absolutely critical. One other example is it's 2023. So in 2020, when COVID first hit, I had a passion for, okay, we got to get people, test kits and how can we do all of that kind of thing. So I went out, reached out to some of my contacts, and we built out a small business to get test kits out of China and India and some other countries. What we didn't know about the market is that the distribution channels for that were already set in stone.
Mm,
So that if you didn't have the right relationships in place prior to wanting to get into those distribution centers, it was impossible to do so.
mm.
So no, with a small market budget, the way that I had it, but I pumped money into it, because as entrepreneurs, that's what we do.
That's
We
what we
try
do.
and right, we try and go out there and find new ways to do different types of things.
Right.
But you get to a point, and I remember the previous learning lesson. And after we threw, I think it's almost $500,000 into the program, I said, no, this is not going to work. And pretty soon it became very evident that I was too late in the market to
Ah,
participate in a new industry, right?
interesting. Interesting.
So in the first instance, I was too early. And in the second instance, I was too late.
Right.
So again, using that, I could have spent all of everything gone all in, which is,
Yeah.
again, what entrepreneurs tend to do. But in this instance, I was a little bit more disciplined. And while it was a loss, it wasn't a loss of everything.
Let's kind of work this into our discussion about collaborations.
Sure. Love that.
What are the opportunities then for someone who's wanting to start a business?
Mm-hmm.
Who should they be collaborating with to help them decide if this is the right business, if this is the right time? I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, we do too little research to start with.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And we don't know who we need to connect with. It's that old adage of we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
So we don't know what resources we need to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so how collaboratively, how could someone work through all of that? What would be a pathway for them?
Well, again, research is the key to almost everything. And now we have some online tools that enable you to do this really, really simply.
Yes.
It's amazing, right? The barriers to entry to starting a business is so low. But
Mm-hmm.
from a collaborative perspective, one thing that you need to always be very aware of is the motivation that a potential collaborative partner has.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? Really, everybody will say, I'm very interested in supporting you and helping you. And yes, absolutely. Let's work together to get the product into the marketplace. But there's different motivations for the reason why they say that.
Right.
Some of those motivations could be very company centric, right? My company needs your deal, your product line,
right,
for me to make my numbers. So I'll do whatever I can to ensure that, we get this deal done. You, on the other hand, are honestly looking for, potentially in this potential collaborative relationship, a guide to help you get your product either A, manufactured, B, marketed, C, distributed, and D, get it into the hands of end user consumers. You're looking for them to provide that. So fundamentally what you have is one company who's here and another company who's perceived to be up here.
Right.
Well, that relationship by default is unbalanced.
Right.
And unless you've identified specifically what your core values are, their core values, and then beyond that, what their motivations and their exit strategies for their business are, then by default, it's going to fail, period. And trust me on this. You don't want the scars, the arrows that are in my back. No.
Exactly.
So from a collaborative perspective, it makes sense to really understand. In fact, I'll tell you what, Regina, why don't you do this? You tell me a product, then we'll run through the process for somebody.
Okay. Let's see.
You want to take a widget or do you want to take a service?
Let's take a florist.
Okay, a florist. So the florist, they love floral design. Let's just say, and they want to get into business.
Right.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So first of all, very first thing that you have to understand is what are the sources of supply for all the flowers?
Right.
What kinds of floral design do you want to implement? What size business do you want to build? And it's interesting you pick floral design because my wife used to be the CFO of one of the largest florists here in San Diego. So,
so you have a little knowledge here. I did not know that, folks.
Right. And so you need to know where the sources of product are, sources of raw materials.
Right.
You need to know how to negotiate the best possible pricing for that. Okay. Then you need to understand how much it's going to cost you in advanced financing to buy the source materials so that you can actually turn them into floral designs. So that's on the manufacturing side. Then the distribution is, okay, how many out to the client? Well, I don't know yet because I don't know who my clients are. We haven't defined that. So now we have to go into that next step, which is identifying who the ideal client is. Is it business to consumer? Do I want to have a floral shop? or do I want to be a business to business floral designer
Right.
for events? Two different
Right.
businesses completely. And because those
Yes.
are two different types of businesses, the people to whom you would speak would be different on a collaborative
Right.
basis as well.
Right.
So from a mentoring perspective, or I would be advising somebody very specifically, do you understand all three of those components? Your core values first, what you're seeking in a partnership and a collaborative partner, who your ideal client is, and then
Right.
from that figuring out, oh, here are a list of people that I need to have, because getting a search on, in this instance, let's see, it would be Florist is a place up here. I know the name of it, but I can't think of the brand of business it is.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, they grow the flowers. They're flower
Okay.
growers,
Right.
right? You can search and find them. That's not a problem. You can also search and find and understand, because you can pick the phone up and call them, how much money you're going to need. Then
Right.
you're going to have to pick the phone up again and do a business search for the kind of financing companies, banks,
Right.
and other alternative forms of financing that you're going to need to set things up. And again, you're going to go
Right.
through that same process. What are my core values? Here's my end client. Do you, in fact, want to work with a company that's a startup in the floral industry that has a B2B or a B2C flavor? And if so, how do you support them? And then you can make some decisions about that. And then
Right.
finally, on the other side of it, marketing. Do you know how to market? Yes, no, or maybe so. And if so, what kind? Because it depends on, again, what kind of ideal client you're going to have determines the kind of marketing that you're going
Right.
to use.
Yes.
So now with all of those things, these help you determine who you're going to pick the phone up and call for collaborative business partnerships.
Awesome. So I think sometimes we get a little narrowly focused in terms of what collaboration is. And you've
Mm-hmm.
mentioned several potential levels of collaboration there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's not just a one and done. There's a lot of different levels of
Yes.
collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a digital product in the digital world, they have things called affiliates,
Yes.
and affiliates are um, people who um, people who are willing to take your product or service and, at their convenience or your insistence, either one of the two, market to their people.
Yes.
And so the question is, do you want that kind of relationship? And generally, unless it's a product launch, the challenge with getting an affiliate program up and running is that you're going to have multiple people trying to, theoretically sell your product line at
Right.
a very, very high rate of commission,
Right.
50% or higher in many instances. So that's on the digital side. If you have an affiliate program for a physical product, you really have to think through what your cost of goods are going to be for affiliates.
Right.
Then there's moves more towards a referral program. Referral programs are very, very prevalent in the real estate industry. They're very defined and very specific. So you know that you're going to get between 20 and 25% if you refer a buyer or a seller to another agent. And it closes, the transaction closes, you're going to get that. But you have no responsibility.
Right.
Right? Now, if you're the referring agent, you love that because you don't have to do anything. The previous example, when we talked about affiliates, you have to do an awful lot to ensure that
Yes.
you're going to reach out into the marketplace and get that product known by other people. So those are
Right.
two different kinds of things. But then you
Right.
have kind of an interim group of people, which I call strategic alliances. Collaborations for strategic alliance, which is less than a joint venture and a merger, right? So joint venture is when, talk about the high levels first. Merger is simple. You're merging two companies into one.
Right. Right.
Simple, nice and easy. If you're having a strategic alliance, That's a different kind of program where you're aligned with their alignment as well. So your values, their values, you have ancillary products that fit together. So your strength in your product line might be water filters and
Right.
water filtration devices, and that they may have a marketing company that only markets successfully to commercial water utility companies.
Right.
Perfect fit. So that makes a good
Yeah.
strategic alliance.
Right.
And you do revenue share for the
Hmm.
products that get sold, and you can negotiate what those are. But the real significant difference is the level of responsibility that each individual entity entering into that relationship has for each other.
Right.
Right. So you have to be very clear about what that ends up being. In fact, you and I have talked about different types of strategic alliance programs, and I've got a whole
Yeah.
list of. In fact, I have I teach a course on strategic alliances because that's what we
Awesome.
did in the high technology world.
Very good.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Oh, tremendously, folks. I hope that you are really paying close attention here. He's really sharing a lot of great value. Um, so those are all levels of collaboration
Collaboration. Mm-hmm.
that you need to have an effective business,
Exactly. And I'll tell you, here's the
successful
thing.
business.
When you start a business, you have a tendency to think, I know better than anybody else because
Yes.
I came out of a
Fill in the blank.
situation. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I came out of this situation and I know that they did it wrong.
Right.
I can do it better and I'm willing to do it better. And
Right.
here's my product and I'm doing it better. So therefore
Right.
everybody needs to have me.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Um,
Or we think we have the greatest thing since sliced bread and everybody needs it. And yeah,
right.
no.
Yeah, no. I always tell people, the only thing that people really need to have, they need to have water. They need to have food. They can have multiple types of shelter, and sometimes they have to pay taxes, but they generally don't need the product that you've got because
Yeah,
they've lived the whole life right now
exactly.
without your
Without it.
product.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, however, you still need to have, it's even more important that you need to have somebody that you can bounce ideas off of.
Yes.
That's why it's so critical to have a coach or a mentor. You've got to
Amen.
have somebody who's been through that,
Yep.
who is going to be honest enough to have you face the difficult questions, but also be compassionate enough to understand the passion that you have for your business,
Right.
who can help and guide you.
Right.
I would never, ever, ever suggest anybody starts a business and tries to do it on their own. Been there, done
Been
that,
there, done that.
lost
Yeah.
my shirt. Okay, don't do that.
Everybody always says, got the t-shirt. I said, got the t-shirt and burned it. I don't want that t-shirt. And the
That's exactly
bonfire.
right. So true. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It
we
was,
do. But you know what? Being an entrepreneur, part of it is the strength of character to do things on our own.
yes.
Right. Being an entrepreneur, there's the scientific studies by Harvard, MIT, and I can't remember, was it Carnegie Mellon? I think it was Carnegie Mellon, where they, ironically enough, got together and said there's only about 5% of the population that can actually become an entrepreneur. They have the personality for it, the ability to stand up to the risk,
Yeah.
the uncertainty that happens on a daily, sometimes hourly basis, right?
Yep.
And that independence gives us the feeling many times that we can do it on our own. I don't need anybody.
Yes.
Well, I'm here to tell you that you need somebody.
Yes.
At least
do.
you need somebody who's going to buy your product.
Right.
So
Right.
by default, you still need to have people, and then you need to understand who those people are.
Right.
Which means that you have to stop thinking so much about yourself, get out of who you are and what you do and how much you know. All important things, but by the same token, be humble enough to take the knowledge and advice and counsel of people who've been there before you.
Yes.
So,
JB, would you talk to us about how trust factors in to these collaborations
oh
and
my
how we
gosh.
get to that place of trust?
Yeah, there was a great book. Stephen Covey's son wrote a book called The Speed of Trust.
Yes,
And it's a,
I have that.
yeah. And, you know, I think the Covey family have cornered the market on being able to observe things in nature and systematize it and put it into very specific places. I mean, the 7 Habits were, you know, how I got out of a lot of nasty places in my business career. But The Speed of Trust is a really great book too, because he talks specifically about that which we know intuitively. Trust comes from a period of time. So trust it doesn't start immediately.
Yeah,
You're given
right,
the opportunity to trust when you engage in a relationship of collaboration. Trust builds over time when both sides say that they're going to do something, commit to it, understand that commitment, and follow through.
right,
Then the next time, say it, agree to the commitment, follow through. Then a problem occurs. Inevitably, it happens in every collaboration, in any relationship I've ever been in.
yes.
And of course, it's never been my problem, right? But when the problem occurs, how do you deal with it?
Yeah,
Okay, here's what I've had to learn. I take complete responsibility. I apologize, and I will do whatever is required to not have it happen again. Is that okay?
yeah,
Wow. If people apologized and committed to that,
right,
trust would be built up instead of eliminated when mistakes are made, because mistakes will be
right.
made. They
Mistakes
will
will
be.
be made. We all make them. We're human. And
Exactly.
I think in the day and age that we live in right now, to some degree, I think that those happen more frequently than in the
Mhm.
past because there's so much going on today. You know, the
Right.
speed of the day and everything that's happening is causes us to sometimes have cracks in the sidewalks if we don't have things in place to prevent that.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that. I've been thinking lately, especially after we've had our earlier conversations, that when you when you start putting all of these things together, right? Businesses and collaborations, and the speed of which uh, our world has changed,
Yes,
right? Uh, so much information is coming to us on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, that we don't have our bodies, our minds are not developed enough to process that information.
yeah,
So we have this little thing, everybody's heard it, the fight or flight syndrome.
right.
And guess what happens? We get into a stress level,
Yep,
which creates a bunch of cortisol and a bunch of negative
right,
things that happen inside of our heads. And we look for patterns because the patterns help us get through that huge amount of data that's coming at us,
right,
right?
right.
And so that pattern that we see is not really a pattern. So it takes 4 elements, a minimum of 4 elements to determine a pattern. But we take
Okay.
one item. I don't know if you've ever done this, right? Ever played Name That Tune? You remember that?
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes,
Many of your audience may not remember this, but there was a program. It's called Name That Tune, and they would play like notes,
right,
and you would guess. I would name that tune in 2 notes.
right.
That's pattern recognition, right?
Yes,
So we do the same thing for almost everything, and we take a shortcut instead of waiting for the fourth, fifth, or sixth input to determine if it's a valid pattern. We get to step one input and go, I know what's going on. And then
yep,
we run a play that's in our head.
right,
And
right.
that play is going to lead us down a path that may not be, in fact,
Yeah,
it may not be not right. It will be downright disastrous.
yes, yes, yes.
So, yeah.
You remind me of a game I play with my husband. I, I have these tunes going through my head all the time. You
Yeah.
know, I'll say to him, Okay, you get three guesses to guess what tune is in my head. Maybe I'll give him a clue. Maybe I won't.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
same kind of a thing, right?
You know, here's and it's fun to do that because we were in relationship and we know each other well enough to
Yeah,
be able to do that. But
right.
here's the danger. I was in a contract negotiation at one point, and I remembered early on in my career, I had one contract that was going to close within a specific time frame. It was a huge contract, and it failed. So guess what? Big contract comes in now. This is like 4 years ago. And what happened in my head is I ran the same play that I
Yes,
had before.
yes,
Now, there was the indicators were not there,
right,
but I ran the play anyway
right,
and almost got to a place where I messed up that contract.
right. Based on the historical evidence
Yep.
in your brain. Yes,
In my
yes.
brain, which wasn't real in
Which,
today's
yeah,
situation.
exactly, exactly.
So, that's what we have to watch as entrepreneurs when we start a business and start building it. We have a tendency to think that, that which happened last month or last year or whatever is going to work right now.
Right.
Can I give your viewers a secret here?
Sure.
Here's the secret. Shh. That which happened in digital marketing 4 months ago is not going to work in 3 months. It's not.
Yeah.
Okay. Just get that clear, because you have no clue as the entrepreneur, as the product owner, you have no clue the platform that you're using to do digital marketing and advertising the rules for that platform are going to stay the same. It may change. Boom.
And they most likely are going to change. Yeah.
Right. Then the other part of that is this. On the recipient side, your customer side, something in the market may have changed their perception of the value of the product that you have.
True.
So guess what? You've got a double whammy on both sides.
Right.
You've got a scenario, and we found that, by the way, in the pandemic. So we had on the one side, we had all these things that were, there were, I think, 4 people who were selling Facebook ad programs at like $15,000. You go for 3 days and you're going to get this whole program, and they're going to do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then 6 months later, Facebook changed the algorithm and none of it worked. But they were still selling the program and still getting lots of money, and people were still applying that theory. That which worked in the past doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in the future. That which didn't work in the past doesn't mean it's not going to work now. So our job as the entrepreneurs to go through that swag analysis and, look for collaborative partners who can advise you as to what things are going on in those 3 areas that we talked about: manufacturing, distribution, and marketing and sales.
Because we cannot be experts in all of those areas.
Absolutely not.
You're not going to live long enough to become an expert in all of those things.
Right.
And they're changing on a moment-to-moment basis. So you have to have in your arsenal of collaborations those people who are experts in the things that you are not.
Exactly.
Which means an honest assessment of self, right?
Yeah. So, when I start working with people, that's the very first thing that I do is I give them what I call the readiness assessment. And the readiness assessment is really, it's a mindset and risk assessment of the entrepreneur.
Right.
It's like that. So, oh my gosh, it's such a wonderful experience to go through, because there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer, first of all. Right. It's just an honest evaluation of where you are right now. And it needs to be reviewed because things happen.
It changes.
Yeah. You might get a huge contract of a client who just got a huge contract, like multi-million-dollar contract, and her whole world is just blown up. And so all the things that she was thinking she was going to have to do to tighten the belt and do it, fall out the window.
Just change.
So now, completely different.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have to think about all of that and constantly reevaluate. That's also one of the things that a reason why you need to have a mentor and a coach is really someone who can walk you through that process consistently.
Right.
If you're not doing a quarterly assessment of where you're at, You know,
Yeah, don't just do it once a year or not at
no,
all, right?
yeah, no, no, not at all.
Yeah, yeah. I have a planner that I use that I really like. And you mentioned the Covey planner. I used that when it first came out, and that was the best
Hmm.
thing at the moment for me. And then, but throughout my life, I've struggled to find the right planner for me.
Hmm.
And the one I
Hmm.
use now is called Ethic, and it's by Dave Rule out of Canada. And I love it because you start off with like your 5 goals for the year, and then you break that down into quarterly buckets. You know, what are the 3 buckets I'm working on this quarter? What are the big rocks in those buckets? What are the little rocks? You know, and you wind up with at least 20 things that you're looking at for each of those buckets for this quarter, not for the
Right.
year, just for this quarter. And
Hmm.
then that reviewing of that daily, weekly, monthly, so that you really are centered on where you're going, what you're doing, what your priorities are, instead of just letting the day happen.
I love that. You know, take control of the day, carpe diem, right? Um,
Exactly. Because otherwise you just allow to happen what's going to happen. And this keeps you centered and focused, and so I really appreciate that because it's so easy to just, oh, gee, nothing on my calendar right now. I can just go do something, you know.
yeah, you know, it's interesting. It does point out something that as you start building a business, you don't necessarily have to start this, but I found it's a great practice to begin. And that's to set aside time either on a Sunday night or very, very, very early on Monday morning to do that planning for the
Yeah,
rest of the week, right?
absolutely.
Include the important things that are there, but never, ever, ever forget that you're going someplace. You're going someplace this month, this quarter, this year.
Yes,
And if you're doing it right, 2 years out, 3 years out.
yes,
So you can ask yourself every week this one question: what's the one thing I'm going to do this week that's going to help me get to that 3 year goal?
exactly. Exactly. And that's what
Right?
this does. Yeah, this
Yeah.
process takes you from that bigger goal, brings you back into the moment. What is it I have to do this week? And I find I'm so much better at staying on task
Right.
with the process, and making sure that the things I'm doing this week, yes, I have to take care of the things that come up,
Hmm.
but the
Yep.
things that I'm doing this week are taking me to those goals
Right.
that I'm
See, that's the
focused on
reason why
those.
y'all need to work with her. Just saying. Just saying.
You're awesome, JP. And I was sitting here thinking they need to work with you.
Well, you know, we are the 1-2 punch. I'm just saying, because
Absolutely.
you know it's again from a collaborative perspective. Surround yourself with people who can help you get to the place where you want
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
And if you're unclear about where you want your business to go, then what we need to do is we need to start with your personal development plan first, right?
Hmm.
Readiness
Yes.
assessment, personal
Yes.
development plan. Where do I want to be? Because your business should serve the lifestyle and life that you want to create for yourself.
Exactly.
So
Now
if
and in the future.
and in the future, exactly. And so if
Yes.
you don't have those two components in place, you're kind of like a ship with a, you know, kind of a weak rudder.
Right.
And it kind of floats around and you're going this
Yeah.
way. That's wrong. I mean, the world is going to, you know, take you in different directions. But if you don't have that strong rudder of the direction that you're going, again, core values plus the way you make decisions,
Right.
then you're going to end up anywhere. You know,
You
you have to have a
used a word.
direction.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
do. And you used a word there that I want to come back to, and that was surround yourself. 2 words, surround yourself.
Hmm.
Because often one coach, one mentor is not what you need. You know, they
Right.
have a particular focus. You have one
Sure.
focus, I have another. Yes, there's a lot of crossover in what we do,
Sure.
um, and a lot of synergy in what we do, but we both bring different things to the picture, to the table. And so, you know,
Absolutely.
look at how do you fill in all of those gaps that you need, which I think you did a beautiful job of iterating earlier when you talked about the various levels that they need to be collaborating on as they start and or grow their business.
Absolutely. You'll find that as you start and grow a business, that it changes over time. Um, again, I earned my gray hair, so been around for a long time. And what I can say is there's a mindset when you first start, right? You started, it's Thursday, February 2. So let's say yesterday you started a business, you have zero revenue.
Right.
Your mindset, how you're thinking about being a CEO, the business and everything. In fact, you're probably not even thinking about being a CEO. What you're thinking about is you want to get a product out in the marketplace.
Right.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. And then you get that first sale in, different mindset.
Yeah.
Now you get a certain amount of revenue, say up to about $100,000 in gross revenues. You're still in that, is we going to make it mindset. Then you go between 100,000 and say 500,000. Oh man, I got a business, but I'm doing everything myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you will change, and the people that you're going to have surrounding you are going to need to change as well.
Right.
You'll find, the internal stakeholders are going to change, and the external ones as well.
Right. Right.
Just have to be aware of that and understand that it's natural.
Yeah, and it's okay.
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah.
It's okay. Absolutely. Awesome. Oh, JB, I love our conversations.
Yeah, right?
You bring so much value to the table. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. This is great discussion.
My pleasure. Love to do it. Absolutely.
Hopefully people got lots of great takeaways here.
Absolutely.
Would you give us your final thoughts on collaboration, and also let folks know how they can reach you, how they can get in touch with you?
So collaboration is the key to your success. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You need to have people around you. You need to leverage their skill sets, and they need to leverage yours. So please, please, please take the time to understand your zones of genius, your zone of excellence, and leverage that to acquire and help other people, because when you help other people get what they want, they're going to help you get what you want.
So true. So very true. Love that.
So yeah, you can reach me at perceptiveinsights.com or jbh@perceptiveinsights.com if you're interested in understanding a little bit more about values and how they apply to your business. Happy to have a conversation. Again, you send me an email at jbh@perceptiveinsights.com.
And you're here on LinkedIn as well, right?
Yep, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. That's right. JB Herrera. So you can see. It
was easy to find, folks. He was easy to find on LinkedIn. It's been delightful, JB. We will do this again, and we will probably have some additional panelists with us next time we do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We take it as it comes.
That's right. That's what we do as entrepreneurs. We just, adapt and overcome.
Adapt and overcome. So again, thanks, JB. Thanks to all of you out there for watching and listening. We'd love to see your comments, your thoughts, your questions, and anything else you'd like to have added to this conversation about collaboration. So
absolutely.
Appreciate you all so much. Bye for now. See you next time.
Take care.